The Chinese pen brand PenBBS came about in a really interesting way. Born out of a forum of Chinese pen lovers, they decided to make their own pens and inks and all that kind of thing. So, they've been making pens for the last few years, and a couple of years ago I kind of stopped reviewing them because I found them all to be just a little bit the same and I wasn't in love with the writing experience. But I've been hearing wonderful, wonderful things in the last couple of years. So I decided to get this. This is the PenBBS 556, but it's a model I like the look of and it's a piston filler, and I wanted to see if they'd also improved the piston mechanism, given that the last ones I tried had not been great. So today I'm reviewing this pen. I'm going to review the pen's features as well as the writing sample and all that kind of thing, and talk to you about what I like and don't like about this pen. So please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, and consider becoming a member of this channel, where for a small monthly fee you'll get early access to my videos, priority comments, and some members only Q&As, hopefully starting up in the next couple of months. But right now let's look at the PenBBS 556, a very interesting pen from this well-loved Chinese pen brand. So this is the PenBBS 556 model. Now this particular one was released in May of 2025, I believe, and I got it, I suppose, towards the end of 2025. I've been using it a little bit since. There are a bunch of different materials, like finishes and things of this pen. I wanted one that was slightly see-through, but not like completely just like demonstrator. So I got this sort of black ribboned version. I wanted to be able to see the mechanism and see it operate, because one of my problems with PenBBS in the past was a pen like this, which is the 309 model. Like, love this awesome material, but the piston on this, as you can see, gets stuck. Now, it doesn't matter how often you lubricate that. The first time you use it, it'll work, but as soon as you go to use it again another time, it just doesn't want to work very, very well. So I was interested to see if they'd improved the mechanism that they had in the piston filling pens. And so the 556 was a great option for that, because I also think it's quite a handsome pen model. I'm not entirely convinced that I like those super peaked finials and ends, but you know, that's just my own personal taste. But we're going to talk about this pen today. So PenBBS started making inks in 2017 and then pens in 2018, as far as I'm led to believe, and they were formed out of a forum group on the bulletin board system, so PenBBS, and like engineers and people who love pens and stuff, they started making their own, and that's cool. I think it's based in Shanghai. And so the pen actually on the back here says made in PRC. So it's a Chinese pen brand, but it has been around for a while, making pretty decent quality pens. So let's talk about this one. The top there, as I said, there's sort of weirdly sort of sharp peaked finial there. Then you get the little clip ring, and the clip is perfectly usable. I've had no issues with that. Slight swell to the cap, and then this chrome cap band here. I'm not sure how well the camera will pick it up, but it says PenBBS and then the logo and then 556 made in PRC, which is, yeah, it's a big cap band, but on this particular version of the pen, it doesn't sort of like stand out too much. It'll step down off that onto the barrel, which continues along. Little ring there, once again, that sort of metal ring, and then the piston turning knob. Now, I can't operate the piston on this pen because, as you can see, it is currently inked up. But I have to say, I'm impressed with this piston mechanism. It works flawlessly. So the way piston, if you're not familiar with it, works is that you have your bottle of ink or your ink sample or whatever you're using to fill it from. You put the nib into that just past the end of the feed there, and then you turn the knob on the end here, and as you turn the knob, the piston runs up and down in the pen, sort of like it's like the entire body of the pen becomes like a converter, that kind of system. So as the piston is pulled back up to the top, it draws ink up into the pen, and you can see it gets a pretty decent fill. I've been using this for a couple of weeks on this fill, and you know, it's making a dent, but it's got a good ink capacity, and you do get a pretty decent feel of it. And then on the end there, you also get another peaked finial. It is a twist cap, and it comes off in about 1 1/4 turns. And there's a little step down onto smooth threads, and then there's another, you know, sort of band there that says PenBBS Type A nib. And then you get the section, which sort of tapers, and you get a little flare on the end, and then the PenBBS nib. This is a fine. It says since 2005. So I think that's probably when the PenBBS forum was started. And yeah, I as far as I'm led to believe, they started making pens a little while after that. And there is the feed. It's a nice size pen. It's got a good length. It does post, but it posts sort of not particularly deeply. I think it posts onto that metal ring there. So I'm not sure if it's going to like activate the piston as you turn it. Yeah, it will, just ever so slightly. You can see it sort of just raising that piston there. So it's something to be aware of. So I don't tend to post a lot of piston filling pens if they post on a ring or on the end there. So this isn't one I do post, but I don't think it needs it. It's quite a nice size. It's a fairly sturdy pen. Like these, you know, materials and things, they're quite fine. It's got a nice aesthetic to it. And I think it's a really lovely model from PenBBS, who have done some really bizarre pens as well, especially like their pens of the year, things like that. They tend to be quite unusual. But in terms of like a nice sort of standard pen that looks like a fountain pen, this does a pretty decent job. So for the size comparison day, I'm mostly going to show it alongside the Lamy Safari here, but I wanted to show a couple of other PenBBS models. Firstly, this one is the 350, which aesthetically I like, but it is sort of slightly modeled off another brand of pen. I can't remember the model number of this one, but it's one of the more sort of unique kind of designs with all those tapers and flares, and I thought that beautiful brown swell material was quite nice. So you can see it's bigger than some of these. Then here alongside that 309, which, you know, I think shares some design features, but I think this is a better design and certainly an improved design. And then the 456, which is a vac filler, which for a long time was my favorite PenBBS pen, but mostly because I swapped out the nib to a standard Yovo number 6 medium nib. This is one of the ones from Goulet pens back in the day. But that pen wrote really well. I loved the filling system, but as I said, I replaced the nib. The nibs have always been an issue for me with PenBBS. But there alongside the Safari, you see it's got some nice length to it. Uncapped, they're closer in length, but the PenBBS has a slightly longer nib. It's sort of almost a number 6 sort of size nib. And then if you desire to post it, it comes out quite long. It's not a small pen, and it's one of the things I like about it. It feels very, very comfortable in the hand. So what are the specific dimensions of the 556? Well, it is 149 millimeters when it is capped. It is 133 when it's uncapped. So, you know, it is a really nice sort of size in the hand. I find that very, very comfortable. And then if you post it, it comes out to 180. So it is quite a long pen. As I said, it's not the best posting because it does post onto the knob, which is one of those like things I just do not like. The section of the pen is about 11 millimeters around the sort of more comfortable sort of middle of it there. The pen weighs 29 grams, 17 in the body and 12 in the cap. So that 17 gram writing weight is very, very comfortable. Okay, time for the writing sample, and I have my standard Clairefontaine 90 GSM paper here. So we have the pen, the BBS 556, and this is the fine nib. There are some other nib versions available, but it'll all depend on, you know, like what is in stock and where you buy it from, and of course the material and all those kinds of things. It is a PenBBS branded steel nib, and it's sort of roughly number 6 size, maybe slightly smaller, so, you know, we'll put 6-ish. It's not necessarily going to be interchangeable with every number 6 nib or every number 5 nib. So, you know, if you want to swap the nib out on this pen, just have a bit of a play around with any nibs you have available to you and see sort of what works. The ink in this today is Diamine Monaco Red, which is one of my favorite reddy brown leaning inks. Let's do some writing. So I think this nib is an improvement on previous PenBBS nibs I have written with. Is it perfect? No. I still find the feedback or the drag on the nib to be just a little too... we talk about feedback with nibs like the Sailor nibs and things like that. This is slightly different. This is like draggy on the page. And on those cross strokes, particularly right to left, it is sort of catching. Now, this is as the nib came to me. I haven't tuned it. I haven't done anything with it. I've just been writing with it on and off over the last sort of few months. And sometimes it can be quite pleasant. Other times, as I said, like depending on the angle you're writing, depending on that, the drag on it, like you can't hear the drag, but it's a feeling on the page. Like it's the same drag I get from nibs like the ones on the Narwhal pens. So I'm convinced that they're related. Just saying. Reverse writing. It's relatively smooth, very fine and quite dry. Flex, no, it's a pretty stiff nib. You're putting down a little bit more ink and things like that, but it's definitely not like opening up the tines. Wetness, like it's pretty good, really. I don't have any sort of concerns about the wetness here. Fast writing. It keeps up. I really like. I can't fault the performance of this pen. It's consistent. It's reliable. It has a nice sort of pretty decent fine line. It's just for me, and maybe it's because I'm left-handed. So let's just do a little bit of right-handed writing here. I still feel that sort of draggy feedback on the page. And that's it's just my own personal taste, right? So in this pen world, in this hobby, there are things that are objective and there are things that are subjective. And whether you like something is different to whether it is good, right? I think this is a good pen. I think it is consistent. It's got a good filling mechanism. I'll go into all this in a bit more detail in a bit. But for me, the experience of writing with the PenBBS pens on the page, that drag, it's just not my flavor. So let's talk business now. What does it cost? Well, it ranges in cost depending on the material you get, the seller you get it from, all those kinds of things. Because these are available, like on online retailers. I think, places like Etsy and maybe even occasionally on Amazon and things like that. But it ranges from $40 to $60 for this pen, which is not bad. You're getting a decent pen for that money. As I said, if the nib is your flavor, this is a great option, especially at that price point. So what are the pros and cons? Okay, couple of little cons. Firstly, something that I noticed quite a lot is that some pens more than others tend to get ink in the cap. Now, I've cleaned this one up for the video, but this feed, you can see like the fins are quite deep, right? I'm not sure the camera's going to pick that up. And they hold a lot of ink. And so if this pen gets jostled at all, you put it in a pen case and the pen case is in your bag or something like that, you tend to get a little bit of ink in the cap. So that's just something to be aware of. The other thing for me, as I said, personally, that slight feedback or the drag on the nib, it's not that it's not smooth, but you can feel it. You can feel it sort of dragging. It's the only way I can describe it. Just isn't my taste. Everyone's mileage is going to vary on that. Really, I think something that's going to stand in PenBBS's way is the rise of other brands of Chinese fountain pens. So Asvine, Mahjong, those kinds of brands, even Jinhao and Wingsung and those kinds of brands that are making huge leaps forward using interesting materials. The nibs are making massive leaps forward in terms of quality, smoothness, reliability, consistency, all that kind of thing. I'm especially thinking of Asvine and Hongdian, those kinds of brands here, right? PenBBS is in a similar price range to those pens. So that $40 to $60 range, while you're getting a decent pen for it, there are so many more options now than there were even 3-4 years ago. So PenBBS, if they're wanting to stay competitive in this realm, they are going to have to start doing something. I don't know what that something is, but they're going to have to start doing something, because the Asvines, the Hongdians, the Mahjongs, they are really cramping in on the place in the market that PenBBS sort of held in its own for a while Chinese pens were like, you know, even, as I said, even 4 years ago, Chinese pens were not looked upon in the same light as they are now. So, yeah, I'm just not sure. But there are lots and lots of pros. Firstly, that price point, $40 to $60 for this pen model is great. I think the new piston mechanism is fantastic. It works beautifully, such an improvement on the previous ones. I think the unposted balance of this pen is really lovely in the hand. I've done quite a lot of writing with this pen and I find it very, very comfortable. Same with the ergonomics of like the section and all those kinds of things. It's a comfortable pen. I think the capacity, all those kinds of things, great. The basic design, good. Functional clip, all of that kind of thing. But what I really applaud PenBBS for more than anything is that they are, willing to take a chance and try things. They've got back fillers, they've got bulk fillers, they've got piston fillers, cartridge converter, all that kind of stuff. Like, they're willing to try things in design. They use lovely materials. Like, I quite like this black ribbon material. Like, it's not my favorite kind of material. I probably would have got this like in a Galaxy or something like that. But I wanted something that I could see that piston operate through. But, they use nice materials and they do it all at a, fairly reasonable price. And in the end, it is run and designed and organized by real pen lovers. And I think that shows. So, PenBBS 556 here, a very interesting option. So thank you for watching today's video. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. And please consider becoming a member of this channel. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, your writing, and I'll talk to you soon.